As the creator of Lost, any advice for someone who just left an island? Please welcome to the stage the man behind the mysteries, the one and only Damon Lindelof. Hi. Thanks for being here. Come on in. All right. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. All right. So
Big fan.
When
Wow.
I
just learned so much about Teddy Roosevelt.
there was a lot of Teddy Roosevelt facts that really floored us. He became interested in jiu-jitsu at one point and tried to get the whole military to learn jiu-jitsu. I love a person that leads by just brief enthusiasms. So when we were talking about what to talk about, we couldn't believe how many incredible projects you've been a part of. Leftovers, Watchmen, Mrs. Davis was one that I loved most recently, which a lot of people didn't see.
No one even knows it exists.
Which we're going to come back to, which is
Fantastic,
exciting.
great.
We'll have some fun with that. And here's what I was actually thinking about when I looked at all the different series and movies you've been a part of, is a lot of them are incredible, but seem to me unpitchable. That these are ideas that only work once you see them, because every single part of them managed to be excellent. But if you described it on paper, like I don't even want to spoil what Mrs. Davis is, because we're going to talk about it later. But like, even if you describe The Leftovers, or you talk about the Watchmen that you were a part of, it doesn't come across, because I'm curious about how you talk to executives and made them understand what you were trying to see, because it is like an act of persuasion.
Thanks for saying all that. I think in the case of the Leftovers and Watchmen, Leftovers was based on an incredible book by Tom Perrotta. Watchmen was a graphic novel, 12 issues of a comic book that came out in the 80s. And so there's some basic familiarity, and then you're sort of trying to explain to someone why it matters to you and why now of it all. Lost, which was the first show that I did. Thank you very much. Just had its 20th anniversary. I think that there are, speaking of jiu-jitsu, I think that like there's something about the entertainment business where everyone says that they want something original, but they actually don't. They want something familiar. So you kind of have to pivot on both feet and say that the show is like, oh, it's still Lost. I thought they were found.
Twist.
Great. Lost again.
But people don't want something original, but you give them something original.
Right, you give them something original, and so you kind of try not to talk yourself in circles, as I'm doing now, and make it simple. You talk about the characters, but then you ultimately say, this is going to be a television show unlike anyone has ever seen before, and therefore, how can I possibly explain it to you? And sometimes they buy it.
Well, I mean, but they don't actually like. Have there been moments where like you deliver like a version of the pilot of the first episode of Watchmen and like, oh, this is different than anything we could have possibly expected, and we're good. Like, are there ever been unpleasant surprises that they actually were given something unexpected?
I think all the time. I mean, there's definitely a be careful what you wish for aspect to it all. You sit in a room with a bunch of writers, as I know that you've done, and you try to kind of delight each other and surprise one another and scare one another. And I start to feel really comfortable when I get uncomfortable. And so that's the idea that kind of turns us on collectively. And then once it breaks out of that enclave of the room and suddenly you have to share it with other people, that's the moment where they realize, this is not what I signed up for. And I do think that there's kind of like a fun mischief in the act of kind of being at war with television executives and studio executives. I think that the more uncomfortable that we make them sometimes, the more delighted that they are. I don't think anybody goes to work wanting to be bored. Mm-hmm. I think that people are sometimes scared of losing their jobs. But if you ask them, 20 years after they retire, like what are the moments that they remember, it tends to be the craziest shit that they permitted.
You talked about The Leftovers. I love The Leftovers. The Leftovers was obviously prescient in the sense that it was about a bunch of people collectively dealing with the trauma of a sudden loss. You talked about the first season versus the second and third season, that in the first season, I was against any level of humor because humor would not exist in this space. And I think that was completely and totally the wrong instinct. I'm curious, like, if that was the wrong instinct because just dramatically, whatever, creatively, the show needed to be lighter. I mean, you threw out the credits and did fun credits in Steve, which I think was like an unsubtle way of making that point. But was it also something that you took away from, like, even just thinking about post-pandemic, about how we handle moments of crisis?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, Tom Perrotta wrote the book sort of in the response to 9/11 in a lot of ways several years later, and The Leftovers came out before the pandemic. But I think I, like you, am a Jew. I was raised in the Jewish culture, and we do not do humor and sadness and death at the same time. Like there's a rending of garments and there's a sitting of Shiva, and we're not an uncomedic people. But I think we tend to take loss very seriously. The Catholics, on the other hand, they're having a fucking great time. An Irish wake is like, oh, I would literally like kill somebody to get to be invited to one of those things. And so I think that's sort of like the energy of how do we respond to shocking loss to create like sort of the entire parabola of we're kind of quietly going insane, and sometimes insanity is quite fun. And that was the energy that we got into. And I think that when we were all sort of, it's hard to think about and remember how crazy we were in the first couple months of COVID in like March and April of 2020, when my wife and I were literally like comparing notes with leaving our groceries out in the sun and how we should like wipe them down with Clorox and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like those things actually make us feel better psychologically, these rites and rituals. And so that's a lot of world religions and cults are sort of based on, these are the things that you need to do to feel less pain. And the show is really fixated on that idea.
Yeah. But then, I mean, it would be nice to have like an Irish Shiva, you know?
It would.
Like there's no reason.
We can mix it up.
Yeah, it's funny. It isn't a space for alcohol, the Shiva.
And it's 8 days. I mean,
Right.
Isn't it? Or 6 days? Too long. 7? I don't know. I mixed it up with Hanukkah.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not Hanukkah.
Yeah. But
And we've always said that.
it's beautiful. Shiva's awesome. I don't want to, I've been to some excellent Shivas, but they're not laugh rides.
Hey, no, listen. No, the Shiva community is not going to be upset. People know that Shivas are not fun. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that Shivas, they're no fun.
They're not.
They're not fun, but they could be a little bit drunker. So I haven't thought about it to this moment. Like, yeah, you don't really drink at the Shiva. Although maybe that's something we can change. As the creator of Lost, any advice for someone who just left an island?
You got done dirty.
Yes, thank you, Brad.
And I no spoilers. I haven't seen last night's episode yet. We watch religiously with my family. We are huge Survivor fans. We're very, very excited to see you on there. And I can't wait to see Andy go. But I will say there is glory in going first. Like if you go 5th, if you go 9th. The worst thing you can be on Survivor is the GOAT at the very end. The third, the person who gets literally no votes. You went hard. You as you said yourself, it was a perfect episode. And
thank you for saying that. It's no, I agree. It is the funniest way to go.
I just have one question though, which is there's that one clip that they show us, and you're kind of introducing yourself to your tribe mates. And you, I think you must have said that you were from LA because one of them says,
Yeah.
"Oh, are you from WeHo?"
Yes.
And then you said, "No, not from WeHo, but I have this podcast. It's kind of a big deal, and it's called. Have you guys heard of Pod Save America or Crooked Media or whatever?" And they were like, "No." And I was like, in the Venn diagram of people who know what WeHo is but have never heard the podcast, I just felt like that was a very narrow sliver. So did we miss something? Was something edited out?
So first of all, that's Annika, who's getting a lot of shit for the fact people are like, oh, you're gay and you're from Los Angeles? WeHo? No. But I think there's more people knew about. I think like there was more information. It's an edit. It's
Okay.
a joke. The edit was very fair, but yes, there's a lot more. There's more context there. Like there's a moment where I'm like, I love TikTok. It was very embarrassing, and I deserve to be embarrassed. But there was a longer conversation. It's. So there was that.
As a 51-year-old, I think 41 is still quite young. So
No, and that's
Yeah.
what I thought too until I got there. So, you just announced a Green Lantern show.
It's called Lanterns because we all agreed that the green was stupid. So,
Right.
So now it's just lanterns.
So, Green Lantern, the lantern. So you can make anything you can imagine.
That if you have this magical ring,
Right.
Yes.
And the fights are still close.
Yeah.
Interesting. Can I ask you about World War Z?
Please.
I loved World War Z. And here's what I think was cool about World War Z. It's a rare success for the reshoots. Like people it was covered as like a cursed production. And like it got like kind of like criticism for that. And the end had to be changed. I liked it. Why wasn't there a second World War Z? I want to see what happens. I want to be in the world more.
I would love to see another World War Z. Any more Brad fighting zombies? Great. I hear they've been working on it for a number of years, and could happen. Could maybe not happen. I haven't gotten any inquiries.
I always sign up for zombies.
They're the best.
Yeah. Do you like slow zombies or fast zombies?
Fast ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, who wrote that book that talked about how the only chance any of us would ever have would be against slow zombies? That if we're talking about a world with fast zombies, we're fucked anyway. Slow zombies are the only way we got a chance. Someone
That's a book?
It was a whole book.
Wow.
I think it's the Zombie Survival Guide. What was up with that polar bear?
Still working on it.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
never cracked that polar bear.
No, there was a, do you really want me to answer? There's a Dharma initiative. They came from Ann Arbor. They were doing experiments on the island. Polar bears are very territorial. They were trying to medicate them so that they wouldn't be so aggressive and basically extrapolate that into some form of world peace. One of them got out and started biting people.
I was mad at you about something. I'm realizing now in this very moment that's
I wanna
something I was
hear it.
mad about.
Tell
which
me.
is I was really into
Let's
Lost.
work it out.
I was really into Lost, and then I think you in an interview were asked about the polar bear, and you said, "Oh, we're not really sure what that was there for." There was an interview. Someone gave an interview saying, "We are not totally sure. When we put the polar bear in, we weren't sure what the polar bear would lead to."
Are you sure that wasn't JJ?
It might have been JJ.
Yeah, we both wear glasses.
Well, it was a print interview when I was
Oh.
a kid, when I was
Yeah.
younger, so I didn't know. I wasn't in the business at the time.
It's-
I was just mad because I thought if you don't know the answer, why we neither of us know the answer, then what are we doing here with a polar bear?
I'm going to be honest with you because I don't want you to be angry.
Okay.
There were some things, a few things on Lost that we were figuring out as we went along. But the polar bear,
You son of a bitch.
but the polar bear was not one of them.
Okay.
We in the very early days, we were like, they were doing weird experiments, and the polar bear got loose from a cage on the island, which is kind of more or less.
I hate
what
when
it
that
was.
happens with my polar bear.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
All right. Well, I'm glad. Honestly, I'm glad we resolved that. Now, that's a good example of how your shows inspire intense, long-standing fandoms. I am no exception to that, which is why we're going to play a game we're calling Master of None.
Oh my God! Wow.
Here's how it works. I'm going to go into the audience and find volunteers. You're going to ask our audience questions about the best TV show of the last 10 years, Mrs. Davis.
Okay.
I love Mrs. Davis.
I don't think anybody's seen it, so this should be
I
interesting.
think this is actually, be honest, how many of you have watched all of Mrs. Davis? Don't raise your
okay.
hands. It's a podcast.
Okay.
How many of you have watched Mrs. Davis?
There's
Like
there's
three,
2 people.
3 people.
Yep, there's 3 people.
Wow. Peacock, everybody. All right. Do you have questions, or do you? I need to
This
get
bit's gonna go great.
It's gonna go great. That's
Yep.
part of the fun. Oh, you have them. Okay, good.
Yeah, I got
All right.
it right here in my back pocket.
So we're gonna now do. All right. So it's time for Masters of None. All right. Hi. What's your name?
Sarah,
Have you seen Mrs. Davis?
not at all.
Okay, Damon. Ask the first question.
first question, Sarah, who is Mrs. Davis? Any guess? Just shoot for it.
A woman in a period.
Wrong. Who's Mrs. Davis?
Susan Sarandon.
No, that's just an actor.
It's a good guess.
I haven't seen it, but I assume AI.
Yes.
Hey!
All right, Damon. Go to the second question.
In the first episode, we find out that Mrs. Davis, who is an AI, as we've just established, wants to destroy what ancient item? A, the Ark of the Covenant, B, the Holy Grail, C, the Shroud of Turin, or D, the 3 sacred treasures of Japan?
Hi. What's the answer?
The Holy Grail.
That's
It's
right.
correct. Wow. This show sounds great.
Hi, what's your name?
Jack.
David, ask another question.
Okay, Sister Simone, the disgruntled nun played by the terrific Betty Gilpin, she's amazing, on Mrs. Davis, spends her spare time debunking what profession and why? Wow, if you get this, what
She's a
what
debunker.
profession does she debunk?
Taxidermy.
No.
ER doctor.
The main character of the show debunks doctors? They're not debunkable. They're good.
AI.
No, that's not a profession.
That would be good.
Social work.
Debunking social work.
Somebody's got to.
It's magic.
It's magic. It's magicians. Her parents are both magicians.
Her parents were magicians, and that would fuck you up.
It's terrible.
Hi, what's your name, sir?
Rob.
Rob. Damon, hit him with the next question.
Rob, which performer is not in Mrs. Davis? A, the incomparable Margot Martindale. B, the criminally underrated David Arquette. C, the fabulous Luis Guzman. Or D, the wonderful Jake McDornan.
No, Jake McDornan is in it. Luis Guzman is not in it. And he should have been.
He should have. Luis Guzman should be in everything. Next question. Who do we got, John?
Hi, what's your name?
Ross.
Ross.
Ross, can artificial intelligence gain the ability to believe in the way that humans can? I know.
Yes.
No, incorrect.
Thank God. Big shout out to Tara Hernandez who co-created the show. She's an amazing writer. Next question.
Next question.
Which is not something that happens in the show, Mrs. Davis? A, despondent upon discovering his liver transplant was fake, a man enters a rodeo to prove himself. B, a man is electrocuted by lightning. C, a pope reveals an ad for sneakers. Or D, someone gets crucified big time.
Out of those, the lightning seems the most boring, so I'm going to go with lightning.
Wrong. They all happen in Mrs. Davis.
All of them. I think they're going to want to watch the show now. Finally. Wait, is this the last one?
You
Yes.
can do the last one.
What is the Lazarus Shroud? The
I don't even
penultimate
remember what
question.
the Lazarus Shroud is. I got to look at the card on the floor.
I can.
Oh, yes, I remember what it is. It's insane. This is an unguessable thing.
Why don't you tell us, John?
Oh, it's a special suit that protects you from the acid inside of a whale's stomach. This is a show on Peacock.
Yeah. We were ahead of our time on that. Didn't RFK have some whale carcass?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
All right, and this is the final question. Oh, you're supposed to ask it.
Oh, why do you think this show spoke to me, Jon Lovett, so deeply?
Okay. Why do I think that it spoke to you so
yeah.
deeply?
Why did I like it so much?
I think you have a background in mathematics, and then you segued into creativity, and that strikes me as the kind of person who wants to have order and sensical answers to the world, but you've come to sort of migrate at this point in your life to realize that you don't, but religion doesn't provide you with the answers that you crave, and so shows like this speak to your sense of how the world works and why we're all alive.
I mean, that's incorrect. It's because McDornan is hot, but
He is very hot.
Damon Lindelof, everybody. Thanks.